Okay, so when is the last time you experienced a negative thought like, I'm not good enough, or I'll never be able to make it? And you really didn't want to have those thoughts in you. Or when is the last time you perceived a thought as being extremely positive, like, I'm the best, or of course I can make it? But you didn't really feel that you were speaking your truth, and deep inside it didn't feel 100% right. Well, in this video I'm going to be sharing with you how to avoid the danger of positive thoughts. Yes, I'm not confusing. How to avoid the danger of positive thoughts and how to positively use negative thoughts, so that we really use our thoughts in a way that supports us, in a way that it's much more authentic, and in a way that really allows us to move on in the right way to wherever we want to move on to, whether in our personal life or in our professional life. My name is Olivia Pinto. I help freedom seekers create abundance and harmony while living the life you truly desire. So if you're a freedom seeker and you would like to get access to valuable information, tips and tools to create a life of abundance and harmony, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it so you'll get notified every time I post a new video for you. The very first step is to understand that thoughts are just thoughts. They are not positive, they are not negative. Thoughts are just thoughts. Thoughts is mental activity happening in the body. The same way that we have respiratory activity happening in the body once we breathe in and we breathe out. So it's just mental activity. Let me give you something to think about. If we could rewind the time and go back to exactly an hour ago, and experience all the thoughts that we had in this past hour, okay, but all the thoughts in our mental discussion inside would be in a language that we don't understand. Okay, if you were to experience your thoughts in a language you didn't understand, would you be able to classify them as positive or negative? Of course not. Would you be able to have a relationship with any of those thoughts? Of course not. But you would, however, be able to resonate a little bit more with the sentence that thoughts are just thoughts. Thoughts are mental activity happening in the body-mind. Of course, this is really what thoughts are about, mental activity. And so, once we understand that thoughts are just thoughts, that's when we can start using them in the proper way, because the thoughts themselves are not a problem. What creates the problem is the story that we give to the thought, the relationship that we have with the thought, the identification that we develop with a certain thought. So it's our perception of the thought and not the thought itself that is a problem or may be a problem. Okay, so let me give you a personal example. For many years, I was really having a very poor relationship with my nose. This is quite embarrassing to share, but yeah, I really hated my nose. I couldn't stand it. And I'm not just saying that to give you an example. It's really my experience, okay? I was actually avoiding to put my hair up because I didn't want people to see my nose. And when I was in a car and stopping in a traffic light, I would always make sure to look to the sides or to look down at the people in the cars next to me, even though they're complete strangers and I will never see them for the rest of my life. But the chance that they would actually see my profile from the side was freaking me out. So I was looking like this or like this so they would see the front of my face. And of course I shared it with my father, and he told me, look, Oli, if you really feel like it's really interfering so much with your life and you feel bad about it, I don't mind helping you out. And you know, there are very good surgeons out there that can do a job on your nose. And so why is this relevant? Because at the time, okay, at the time, if someone saw me with my father and would tell me, you know, Olivia, oh my God, you are like the female copy-paste version of your father, because we really looked alike. And you look so alike, really, like the same face in a female version, especially the nose. I would immediately like, oh my God, what do you mean by that? You know, I would take it personally. I would not like the remark. I would focus everything that was said around the word nose and not around you look like your father. And so today, if you were to look at a photo of my father, he passed away, but if you were to look at a photo of my father and say, oh my God, you know, you're like the female copy-paste version of your father, da 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 da, especially the nose, I would say, yeah, I know, I really look like him, especially the nose. So today, I would just look at it as a fact. It wouldn't be something that got triggered. So, is the thought around a nose there back then, when it was really, really disturbing me, was a negative thought? Of course it was a negative thought in my perception. Nose was something negative. Today, a nose is a nose. It's not positive, it's not negative. And especially if I can smell through it and I can breathe through it, thank you very much. So what makes it positive or negative? It's my relationship with the concept behind the word nose. So obviously it's not the thought of the nose, it's not the word nose, it's not the accumulation of letters that create the word nose or the thought nose. It's the relationship that I used to have with it that triggered everything and created a problem. So thoughts are thoughts. They're not a problem, they're not negative or positive. It's our perception, our attitude, and the story we build around a particular thought. Okay? So that's the very first thing to understand. And once we understand that the content of the thought itself, the fact that there is mental activity going on, is one thing, and the story, the meaning, the identity that we develop, the perception, the beliefs behind the issues around it are something completely different, then we can start addressing the thoughts in a very, very useful way. And this is what I'll show you. So why is this so important? It's important because of the concept of suffering. You see, we cannot suffer if we don't resist something. Think about it. If we were to accept everything the way it is, would we suffer? We suffer only when things are not going the way we want them to go, when we resist things as they are and we want them to be different. So we resist, hence we suffer. And why is this so relevant? Because what happened with my nose? What happened with my nose? At the end, I didn't do an operation on the nose, but today I have a completely different relationship with it. And so what happened there? The thing that happened is that I stopped resisting the relationship I had. I stopped resisting, hence I stopped suffering. As soon as I stopped resisting, it's when I started accepting. And of course, when we accept something, then we don't suffer. So it was really shifting, not the thought, walking around saying, I love my nose, I love my nose, I love my nose, when I hated it. That is just dishonest, right? It's about shifting from resisting to accepting, from shifting our perceptions and our relationship with it, and not just changing the words. Even though words are important, words have a frequency, and obviously I'm not taking away the importance of the words and their frequency and the letters and so on, and the meaning of letters and the order and all that. It's a whole thing, not for this movie today. But I'm talking about judging thoughts as negative or positive. It's not about replacing the words to words that we relate with in a more positive way, but it's about really shifting our relationship. So I didn't do a nose operation, but today I don't mind putting my hair up, and when I'm hot or when I feel like it, when I'm in the right mood to have my hair up, here it is. This is me. And this is my left profile, and this is my right profile, and this is who I am. And so it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight. It's not that I said, oh, I don't like my nose. It's not a good thing. It doesn't support me. Okay, I love my nose. It wasn't instant. It was a process of a long period of time that required me to look at body image, at self-esteem, at self-confidence, at father issues, and so many other things related to what was going on then, that it was actually a whole journey of inner work. So I'm not saying it's always easy, I'm not saying it's always comfortable, but it's definitely extremely efficient to look at what is behind this whole thing. So this is why it's so important, because when I stopped resisting and I started accepting, that's when suffering ended, and that's when the word knows did not get a positive or negative connotation, but a factual connotation, just a neutral connotation. So there is no more charge behind this word or behind any thought related to knows, okay? And so it is a process, and I cannot emphasize the importance and the connection of how we relate to things, whether we resist or not, and suffering. In fact, it's such an amazing subject, and it's much easier to stop suffering than what people think it is, that I highly, highly recommend you to watch 2 trainings that I did called How to Stop Suffering. The first is called How to Stop Suffering Part 1, and the second How to Stop Suffering Part 2. And these are 2 trainings that are extremely helpful, with a lot of practical tools for you to apply to stop suffering with whatever it is that you're uncomfortable with. And so I will leave a link above or below this video for you to have access to those free trainings. And when you have time, please watch them. You will benefit a lot from them. So if we look at what I said at the beginning of this video today, which was let's look at how to avoid the dangers of positive thoughts, okay, and how to positively use negative thoughts, then let's understand why it's so important to do that. Well, it comes back to 2 sides of the same coin. It's pretty much the same. If I experience a thought that I label as negative, and I don't want negative thoughts in my life, I want only positive thoughts. So if I will immediately do something to replace that negative thought with a positive thought, what I will do is like put a band-aid on something that hurts without actually treating the reason why it hurts. I will actually do something very superficial that in the moment will make me feel much better, but in the long run will not benefit me. Why? Because a negative thought is there amongst other things because it's just there. The reason we label it as negative is because there is something deeper. And this is an invitation for us to look at that issue, whether it's a belief system, whether it's a perception, whether it's a judgment, whether it's a certain conditioning that we adopted, whether it's a certain identity that we're trying to protect, whatever it is, it's an invitation to look at something deeper. And if I escape or avoid looking at that deeper thing, then what happens is that I immediately replace the negative with the positive, avoiding something that really needs to be looked at. And what is the result? The result is that there is a gap between the words that I'm now using and how I really feel deep inside, whether consciously or subconsciously. And that creates a gap. This gap between what I think or what I say, the words that I consider positive or negative, when I think that they're positive, but deep inside my truth is that it feels very negative, it creates a gap, and this gap creates tension, creates stress, creates disharmony, and it's not supporting us in the long run, because there is a lack of alignment here, and definitely there is no freedom. There is no freedom. And if you are freedom seekers, then obviously you are interested in freedom outside in your life circumstances and in things that can be measured and manifested, like how much time you have, how much money you have, how much freedom you have to operate, with places to be and all that, but also internal freedom, inner peace, right? And how can you be internally free if there is conflict? If there is that of an obvious conflict between what you say or what you think or what you speak, or in other words, between your words and between your feelings. So there is a lack of alignment. It's really very dishonest once we are aware of it. If we're not aware of it, that's the way it is, we're not aware of it. But once we're aware of it, we cannot really ignore this gap unless we choose dishonesty. Because if we want freedom, we want also self-honesty, right? It goes hand in hand together. And it's exactly the same for positive thinking, for thoughts that we perceive as positive and helpful. And what happens is that if we say something that is positive, but there is a gap between those words and how we feel, then again, we are in the same place. There is a gap. This gap is resistance. This resistance is suffering. This suffering is lack of freedom. And whether it's conscious or subconscious, it's there. So freedom really is all about the alignment, the vibration. It's about being in tune, in and out, to something very, very, very specific that you cannot have, and you cannot measure it, not externally and not internally, if you are in constant conflict that produces stress, produces malalignment, produces tension, and produces suffering, produces inner conflict, because then you're in a state of constant internal war. So no, we don't want that. We don't want to just replace the negative thought with a positive thought and stop there. I mean, it's okay to do that, but it's not okay to stop there, because the real danger is that we stop there, and the real work is, instead of stopping there, we look at the issues behind the triggers that created the perception of something being negative. And it's also about not painting our lives with just words, but really resonating it, especially in the feeling, because the feeling level, we need an alignment between the thoughts, the words, the feeling, the emotions, the physical, the environmental, the social, the spiritual, all the levels of what we are. And the feelings are really what vibrates, what resonates with others, what repels or attracts others, other people, other situations and circumstances, and so on. So it's really about the feeling. So let's look at it and see what can we do, or how to apply all the things that I spoke till this moment in practical terms. So how do we do that? How do we apply something practical? Well, you'll be surprised and amazed. But first, I would like to quote an amazing quote by the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who said, "Whatever you put your attention on gets stronger and stronger in your life. Whatever you put your attention on gets stronger and stronger in your life. In other words, whatever you focus on expands. Okay, so let's put everything we said till now together and see how do we apply it on a practical level. You may have also heard that knowledge is not power, even though a lot of people say that knowledge is power, but actually applied knowledge is power. In other words, if we just know something and we do nothing about it, it's not powerful, it's just theory, philosophy, it's internal. But if we put it into practice, then it becomes very powerful. And that's why often the awareness of something, if we put it into action, if we really bring it forth and apply it, then the awareness is a tool on its own. So let's look at 4 steps that I would like you to apply in order to really use your thoughts in a more efficient way and not getting caught up with the words of positive and negative. So step number 1 is to remind yourself that thoughts are just thoughts. Really, it sounds like a very, very little thing, but it's huge. So if, for example, you're caught up in a situation where you're thinking of something negative and here we go again, and you find yourself in the loop and you become aware of being in that loop of negative thinking, just remind yourself, you know, wow, Olivia said thoughts are just thoughts. It's like watching the sky and seeing different clouds passing by and putting the attention and analyzing the thought. Why is the thought there? And is it a negative thought, a positive thought? I like it, I don't like it, I don't feel good about it and all that. It's a little bit like analyzing every single cloud that passes by, but to just remind ourselves that thoughts are just thoughts is like watching the clouds passing by and seeing them just passing by and obviously changing shapes and disappearing, and without really analyzing them. So just be aware of having mental activity just by doing that exercise of observing your thoughts, like if you were observing clouds, is in its own a very powerful exercise, because it allows you to immediately relax a little bit. It allows you to immediately reduce the intensity of the thoughts. It allows you to immediately identify less with the thoughts, and it allows you to immediately get a little bit more of a neutral perspective. Okay, so this is step number 1. Step number 2 is to remind yourself that the negative or positive relationship or evaluation or judgment that you have around those thoughts are not the content of the thought by its own. It's not the content, but it's the story and the meaning that I give to the content. So stop looking at the content and try to look at the emotional charges related, the past memories, the belief systems, what is going on there. Do it without immediately wanting to shift it and feel better on the spot instantly, like the microwave therapy of right here, right now, feeling better. Okay, it's an invitation for us to look at the story. So just remind yourself that it's the story and not the content itself of the thought that is the trigger, and then make the decision to look at the story. Step number 3 is to remind yourself again. Once you remind yourself, it's much easier to actually do it, that suffering is the result of resisting. So once you realize that there is a story around it, then immediately remind yourself, okay, if there is a story and the story doesn't make me feel positive about it, it means that there is something I'm resisting. So really they're like cousins of the same thing. But remind yourself, I am resisting something. And then you have the choice to say, okay, I'm going to ignore and feel good, or despite the resistance, I'm going to look at this resistance and I'm going to close the gap so there is less resistance and there is more alignment between the internal, the external, and all the different frequencies of the body-mind, okay? And step number 4 is to ask yourself, if focusing on something expands it, what can I focus on that will make me feel, not think, but feel what I want to feel in order to support myself. I'll repeat that in different words. If we understand that what we focus on expands, and if we understand that the thought itself is not a problem, but all the story and the trigger and all those things, we can analyze it forever, but we can also just remind ourselves that it's a story, remind ourselves that it's resisting something, and then saying, okay, how does it make me feel? It makes me feel contracted. It makes me feel uncomfortable with myself. It makes me feel unappreciated. It makes me feel very small and reduced. Okay, so would I like to feel expanded and heard and noticed and appreciated? And if so, what do I need to focus on in terms of activities? What activities do I need to focus on in order to feel that? Because once we change the feeling, once we tune into a feeling that resonates with a certain vibration, the thoughts will adjust, the thoughts will change accordingly, and we won't have so much resistance, if at all. We may not have resistance altogether. So what are those actions? It can be reading a certain sentence from a book. It can be listening to a special music or song that you like, that you know, that energizes you, that makes you feel better. It can be speaking to a friend that you know that this friend usually supports you, not supports you by feeling sorry and encouraging the story, but a friend that helps you expand your awareness, a friend that helps you grow into a more neutral and wider and higher and wiser perspective. It could be going into silence and doing some breathing observation, or doing some meditation. Whatever it is, do something, a certain activity. Maybe it's writing, maybe it's drawing or painting, maybe it's cooking, maybe it's going picking flowers. Whatever it is, do a certain activity. If it's part of your business, do an activity that promotes your business, that encourages income activities in your business. Make a few phone calls, make a few sales, you know, whatever it is, do something that makes you feel, wow, and now this is how I want to feel. This is the energy I want to feel in me. And you will see that all the other frequencies, including the mental frequency, will start aligning with one another. So that is the best way to use the thoughts in order to support ourselves and really move on to wherever we want to move on in life in a much healthier way. Now, since we're talking today about thinking, I created for you a free resource that you can download, in which I give you more tips on how to develop a healthier relationship with your thoughts and how to improve your thinking in general. You can pick it up for free over on my blog at oliviapinto.com/6, and you click on the link. I will leave a link above or below this video for you as well, and it will take you to my blog. And in my blog, or if you're already in my blog, you will see that under this video there is a big green button. You have to click on this green button, and it will allow you to have access to the free resource that will show you more tips on how to improve your thoughts and how to develop a much healthier relationship with the thoughts. Question of the week: how do you handle negative thoughts? And does it work for you? Please comment and share how you feel with your negative thinking in the comment section below. I would love to know how you handle negative thoughts and if it works for you. So if you like this video and you feel it added some value to you, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends wherever they are in the world, and make sure to subscribe to my channel. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.